All right, I'm here with Todd McFarlane, the co-creator of Venom, creator of Spawn, owner of McFarlane Toys, co-founder of Image Comics. How's the show treating you so far, Todd? How's the overall crazy cardio of this whole event going?
Okay, here's what I found out fairly early in my career, because I've been going to these things now for, since I was a kid, almost for 40 years now, right? And as a pro for over 30 years now. Every convention is good, and here's why. Because if you're a professional, and I've been that for close to 30 years now, is you come to the convention, you sit down, right? Not high impact, and then people come to you. You don't even have to work that hard. They come to you and they say nice things for hours and hours on end, right? So how is it even possible to have a bad convention, right? So the moment I walk out of the convention, because the conventions are false positives, everybody says nice, you actually think you're actually doing everything right, and then you walk outside and then you deal with the real world, and then you go, oh darn it, and nobody cares who you are, right? So every convention's awesome to me. Every convention, I'm thankful to meet the fans, and because people who don't like you aren't going to stand in line for an hour to say that, because they've only got limited amount of time. They go to the people they like, right? So you're basically preaching to the choir. It's good. Conventions are good.
And so one of your most famous creations had a movie come out recently, Venom.
Yeah.
And I saw that you had attended the premiere.
Yeah.
How was that?
On Monday, yeah. It was funny because they have the big premiere on the red carpet, except for the carpet was black, right? It was the black carpet, which I thought was interesting just to start with. Lots of fans were out there lined up, so I went up and down, signed a bunch of their comic books and their posters and stuff. Got to come in, meet some of the actors, had a nice long conversation with Ruben Fleischer, the director, very charming, pleasant man, whose parents I met live in Phoenix, which is where they don't live that far from me. I thought it was kind of cool. And then we had to sit down and see the movie. It was, so I'm going, oh, look at that. And my wife, who was with me, said that there's an Easter egg in there. I didn't see it. So if you guys go to the movie, you can look for it, because I missed it. Eddie Brock is going through some computer file of his girlfriend, and he looks at some paperwork, and the law firm, I wasn't reading the top of the paper because I was reading something else. The top of the law firm's called McFarlane, Michelini, or Michelini and McFarlane or something. So I go, look at that. They snuck our names in the middle of the movie. So, and then for me, the big thing I was looking for, maybe David was looking for something different because he's a writer. I was just looking for the visual that I had created 30 years ago, which is this big, gnarly, nasty dude in a black costume. And minus the spider on his chest, I saw it. I saw this big, hulking creature on the screen. Because the first go-around, remember when they did it in Spider-Man #3, the Topher Grace?
Yeah.
The conversion didn't add that much weight to him. And again, I'm just being biased and selfish. That in my brain, I'm going, no, Venom's huge, right? He's way bigger than a normal human being. And the Sony movie, I saw this big hulking figure up on screen a lot.
Yeah, and your other most well-known creation, Spawn, you're working on a movie for him right now. We talked about that last year.
Yeah.
Where are you at with that right now? I know that you've got Jamie Foxx cast as Al Simmons.
Yeah, and then we added Jeremy Renner as Twitch, the detective that's in it. Brought on board not long ago Greg Nicotero. From Walking Dead fame, he created all those zombies. Actually worked on the first Spawn movie 20 years ago, and both he and I were way younger. And then Greg's also directed more Walking Dead than anybody else. So when I sat with him, to talk about the costume, and I just had a meeting with him literally 2 hours ago, off-site, that because he's a director now, understands some of the stuff that's in my head that might not be written down on paper. I wrote the screenplay, so I might not be using the right word. And when I visualize it to him, he's smart enough to be able to sort of go, oh yeah, I can do that. And we'll make it in such a way that it'll actually shoot good on camera and it'll show good on camera. And when I was meeting with him, he actually did some 3D outputs of some of the stuff that we've designed, and he painted it. So literally today, I saw the Spawn that I want in the movie. I saw it today physically. I went, wow! And he met and exceeded all my expectations. I go, ding, 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 ding. That's what we've been talking about. That's what we've been designing. And now to just be able to hold it in my hand, I go, wow. So now I need to take that into Hollywood because they're having a little bit of trouble trying to get their head wrapped around what I'm trying to do. I need to tweak this script, I guess, a little bit more to fine-tune it a bit for them, and then just get them out of that superhero mode. But again, if I bring in now these printouts and my animatics and my imagery, and I do my song and dance, then maybe I can get them into a framework that when they read the script will make sense to them, which is basically, it's just a creepy movie, right? I mean, you can do The Nun and you can do Halloween, you can do Spawn, right? So, but if you're thinking of the Avengers, then what I'm trying to do falls completely apart. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and I've been rewatching the animated series from HBO recently and rereading some of the early Spawn books. So how does the overall tone that you're going for kind of compare to those?
Yeah, so the original movie 20 years ago was a PG-13 movie. Then we did the R-rated HBO stuff that had every warning on it, if you remember, right? There's only 5, we had all 5. Over the years, I've had way more response to the HBO of people going, oh, that was way darker and way grittier. So take what we did on HBO and then quadruple it in terms of just the dark sadisticness of it, right? So if you want a serious tone, I don't mean blood and guts and gore. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm just talking about serious, harsh, scary, creepy, insane, messed up stuff, then that's where we're going. And there were especially in the 3rd season of HBO, I thought we got closer to what we're talking about. I want to go way beyond that, but we laid some of the blueprint down there.
And when you're writing for a character like that that's darker and grittier in nature, how do you kind of find the right balance so that it doesn't seem like it's maybe like edgy or...
It is edgy.
Well, yeah, but for the sake of being edgy as opposed to just like having a natural feel to it. You know what I mean?
I think the existence of my book not being a superhero book in the truest sense for 25 years, and especially currently, if you go buy the Spawn comic book now, it's way closer to what I'm going to present in the movie than obviously the first couple issues that came out 25 years ago. So there's been an evolution in him. I mean, obviously, when I left Marvel and we started Image Comic Books and Spawn was my first book, yeah, there's this heavy reliance on superhero tropes and the rule of a superhero comic book. But that was 25 years ago, and I've since evolved it. And so it's gotten to be more of a creepy horror book, and will continue to be so.
Yeah, because like what I was getting at was like, how do you avoid, I guess, maybe things coming off as cliche if you try to, I guess there's like a forced edginess to some things that some writers try to avoid that, if you get what I'm talking about.
Well, here's what I would say. I don't. Let's just get a way that you can do super creepy superhero first before we worry about the cliches of that, right? Yeah. I've got to just get people to accept that you can even get away and do super creepy superhero stuff, right? So because there's either just superheroes or there's creepy, and there hasn't been sort of like the hybrid. Now maybe it's because nobody wants it, and maybe it's because there's no need for it, and I'm just a man on an island right now. But when I give talks, and I'm going to meet some people, and I did a couple yesterday, I'm going to give another one tomorrow. I think there's a hunger among adults, not 8-year-old kids, amongst adults, and I'll put adults as 15 and up, that just are waiting for somebody to give them something super seriously dark and creepy and messed up at least once. Just show it to us, and then we'll tell you whether we like it or not. superhero movies, there's lots of options now. So they're getting that diet. That diet is being filled. Somebody's not filling this other dietary need off in a corner, I think, and I'm completely biased. I think that hunger is bigger than the studios know right now, because I keep seeing it. You know, like I said, 2 weeks ago, None opens up to 55 million, and then in 2 weeks, the Halloween coming out, and I think it's tracking around 65 million. I mean, it's going to be the biggest, not the biggest, horror movie opening in October. It's going to be, if it opens up to the number they're saying, Venom might break the record for October this weekend, and it will only last 2 weeks because Halloween may shatter that record in 2 weeks from now. So there is a hunger for creepy, scary stuff out there.
Yeah. And speaking of Halloween, I've seen some posters that you did for that floating around.
Oh yeah, so I just saw one. They hadn't given me one yet, but yeah, I did a poster, and one of the things we talked about was that the mask has got a lot more detail to it. So I went in there and did maybe more detail than I should have, but I put a bunch of lines in there just to show some of the texturing, that it's not that same sort of plastic head that you were used to. There's a little bit of texture and bounce to it. So.
And with McFarlane Toys right now, with Toys R Us going out of business earlier this year, even though they're talking about making a comeback now, how does that kind of impact you from a toy maker perspective? Obviously it was disappointing, and and it's an impact. I don't think it was probably as big an impact as it probably was for big companies like Hasbro and Mattel that were selling tens of millions of dollars into those stores, right? So they lost a one-stop place where they could get a lot of revenue and a lot of capital. We just now have to take what we were selling to Toys R Us, and at times the last 5-6 years they were at odds of what they were trying to do. So sometimes they were into our stuff and collectibles, and sometimes they weren't, and it was sort of a mixture depending on who was in charge. And so we've been able to fairly quickly sort of spread out what we lost at Toys R Us to other retailers. I mean, we live in a brave new world now. There's a thing called the internet, right? And there's lots of people that buy stuff on the internet and sell it direct. It can be just as geeky, if not obviously way more geeky than a store like Toys R Us, right? So. And how's the construction aisle treating you all? Is it still doing probably the best business?
The construction aisle is an interesting one because I'm getting a sense that it's shopped by moms and dads in a younger generation. People who are hardcore action figure collectors or hardcore Star Wars or something like that don't necessarily then also go into the construction aisle and say, oh, and I need everything Star Wars in the construction aisle too, right? So it's a different dynamic. So I'm finding that probably we go forward, we're going to continue to do construction that probably will still be in a 7 to 16 age, and not probably do things like Aliens and Predator. I think that probably belongs in statues and action figures and other areas that aren't construction.
And what do you have on the horizon in the next year or so that you're excited about toy-wise?
Well, we got Fortnite, which is a giant, huge brand. I just came from a meeting from one of their headquarters with the head designer there on Tuesday. We cooked up a lot of crazy ideas because he's just a little 12-year-old boy in a man's body like I am. So we had a bit of a simpatico meeting that we're going to go, oh my God, what if we did this and this and this and this and this? Oh my God. And then he showed me a bunch of stuff that's coming out in the next year. So we've got that. The Destiny toys are doing good for us. Obviously all of our sports toys and things like Stranger Things. We'll continue to do all the things that we're known for. But probably the thing I'm looking forward to in 2019 also is that we're going to start doing more direct toys to the consumer. So we're going to go back to our roots, and you're going to see more dragons and more monsters and more tortured souls and more twisted stuff. I mean, all that stuff that we've sort of built our reputation on, we're going to go back to it and start making those again. And if the stores that we used to sell them aren't in business anymore, which they aren't, Tower Records and KB Toys and Suncoast and all those places that used to support us, that since they don't exist, we'll just sell it straight to the consumer, right? It's the world we live in now, right? You can cut out the old system and just go direct to consumer.
And is there anything else that you want to mention in this interview?
By the time we sit down next year, issue 300 of Spawn will be out. The comic book, issue 290 is just out. I tried a new thing with issue 290 where people are doing variant covers. So we did a variant black and white, but not just a cover. I made the whole book black and white. So it's a variant book. You can get a variant book. So one's colored and one's black and white. But as we get to issue 300, which will be right at the momentum, hopefully, as we're getting ready to release the movie. But the biggest sort of more exciting issue is the very next one, issue 301, because that sets a record. Right? Years ago, there was a book called Cerebus, the Aardvark, and it had 300 issues, and it was an independent comic book. And so Spawn, when it gets to 301, will now be a record setter. It will be the longest running independent comic book in North America history. So I'm going, and that will probably have come out just before New York Comic Con next year. So I'll be riding high on a couple of big events, issue 300, 301, and then hopefully I'll be able to drop another trailer, at that point to get everybody sort of excited about what we're doing. I also signed, I'm developing some TV stuff, so we'll be making an announcement about some of that. And I think as early as next week, and we'll just keep pushing the boulder up the hill and just see where it all lands.